In my last video, I talked about how I would set up Avengers Kang Dynasty, and I'm going to continue with that trend today. And I'm going to talk about how I would set up Avengers Secret Wars, and set it up in such a way that it would allow the Avengers to find a way to overcome seemingly impossible odds to defeat Kang and rescue their universe, but with some very interesting side effects. Stay tuned. So if you haven't seen my last video and you want to watch that first to know everything that I'm talking about, feel free to click the link at the top. Otherwise, I will give you a quick summary right now. Basically, the way that movie ended, Kang would win. I would have Kang finish taking over this universe, and he would establish himself over it with certain lieutenants, with Thanos, with Hela, with Ultron, and with Killmonger as these lieutenants under him controlling the universe. But most importantly, he would wipe away the powers and the memories of the Avengers so that they cannot rise up against him. Well, that seems like it's final. They don't even know who they are. They can't rise up to defeat him. And even if they wanted to, they don't have their powers. How do they overcome this? Well, before we get into Avengers Secret Wars, there's 2 movies scheduled to be released between those 2 Avengers movies, and we don't know what they are. I think it's going to be very important for those movies to set the groundwork for how the Avengers are going to get out of their predicament. And so that leads to point number 1. I think one of these movies will be the next Doctor Strange movie. Now, we know that the last Doctor Strange movie, he went off to the dark dimension at the end of it to fix some incursions that he had caused. We don't know exactly what's going to happen from that point, but if that's the movie that takes place between Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, they could have it starting from him leaving before the events of Kang Dynasty. And then he's in the dark dimension during those events while Kang is taking over. The result of this would be that he would be protected from what Kang does. He wouldn't have his memory wiped and his powers taken away because he's not in that universe at the time. He's away at the dark dimension. This means that when he's done with his movie, it would end with him coming back and discovering that his world has changed dramatically in his absence. But there's a second movie that's set to take place between these two. And I think that's point number 2, that I would have the next movie be Marvel's, finally, after a long time waiting, introduction to the X-Men. Now, they've hinted at it at times, and we've kind of seen them at times. In Multiverse of Madness, we saw Charles Xavier, but this would be the real first Marvel X-Men movie. I would think that it would take place in some other world, some other timeline, some other dimension. It would take place somewhere else, and it would establish the X-Men. It would be a brand new crew building up this new team of X-Men. And this movie would go however it wants to, but at the end, one of the characters named Magic would have the ability to travel between dimensions, and she would find herself accidentally opening a doorway to a dimension that looks like it's in trouble. This would be the Kang dimension. And her with a small team of X-Men would end their movie, maybe in a post-credit scene, with going through this portal to investigate this dimension on the other side. This leads us now, moving into the movie, we now have 2 different directions to set the ball rolling. We have 2 people, or 2 groups of people, essentially, with Doctor Strange in one and the X-Men in the other, that have hope, that they have the power to enact some change. And they can do that. And that leads us into Avengers Secret War. So the movie would open up with Kang ruling everything, him with his lieutenants. But now we have Doctor Strange, who has entered this universe, and it doesn't look like his. So what would he do if he finds himself now in a universe that he thought was his, but now thinks is not, and he wants to know what had happened? He would seek out Kamar-Taj. He would check in with the Sorcerer Supreme, Wong, and his fellow wizards. The problem is, the wizards had set themselves with the Avengers multiple times in the past. They'd used their power to help the Avengers against Thanos and against threats. And so it makes sense that Kang, when looking to get rid of his threats, would lock away the powers and the memories of the wizards as well. But there is somebody there that can still help Doctor Strange. And that brings up point number 3, that America Chavez will be the key to unlocking the memories and powers of the Avengers. I think that when Doctor Strange arrives there, he's going to find America Chavez, who had not been aligned with the Avengers at any point in the past. All the adventures that she had taken place across other dimensions. And so it makes sense that Kang would overlook her and her abilities when he's looking back on the history of this planet and figuring out what the threats are. Now, she's still with the wizard, so she'd probably have her memory wiped. So Doctor Strange would have to help her to realize the power that she still has. And when she does realize this power and is able to open portals once more, Doctor Strange would ask her to open a portal to his world. The thing is, he actually is in his world. But when she opens that portal, they would discover something very interesting about how Kang was splitting off the powers and the memories of the people in this universe. Kang is a master of time, but time flows through different timelines. So I would have Kang have used his power to merge another timeline into this current one, to have it run beside it as a pocket parallel dimension. And he would have the people and the instances that he wants in this dimension, and everything else is locked away in this other dimension. So when America Chavez goes to open the dimension to the current one, she would see that it is split into two parts. She would see the dimension they live in and this pocket dimension, which stores the memories and the powers. And as such, this opens up the key for them to release the powers and the memories of the Avengers, returning it to them. But they need to find the Avengers to do this. And unfortunately, they don't have unlimited time on their hands. Kang controls time, so if he discovers that there's a threat against him, he can reset it all. And that's why it must be a secret war. But there is somebody else in this universe that could still help them along their path. And that is Spider-Man. In Spider-Man No Way Home, we discover that he had the memory of him was wiped from everyone around. So nobody knows who Spider-Man is. They remember his existence, but they don't know who he is. And then with Kang unable to remember Spider-Man or know of Spider-Man, it's possible that he could also overlook Spider-Man. And that would leave him as a key figure in this as well. Spider-Man would still have his memory because the others, Kang would not have any source of a memory to wipe. The result would be Spider-Man wouldn't just know who he is and what his powers are and see what had happened, but he would also remember the events of Far From Home. He would remember what had happened before with the multiverse. And he would be able to help out Doctor Strange and America Chavez with gathering help from elsewhere. He would already have some allies, other Spider-Men, that he can call to his aid. And then it would allow Doctor Strange to start bringing help from elsewhere under the nose of Kang, while he tries to free the memories and powers of some of the select Avengers, the key pieces that he feels like would be ideal in this fight against Kang. And this brings me to point number 5. This new group of diverse heroes from across the multiverse, they would not be able to outmuscle Kang and his lieutenants. So instead, they'd have to outthink them. They need a way to get past the lieutenants in order to get to Kang, but they need to do it so quickly and secretly that Kang is none the wiser. Now it makes sense that Thor would want to go after Hela once he's freed, and Shuri would want to go after Killmonger, and everyone would want to go after the one that they know best and have fought before. The problem is, those fights have happened, and those villains would be ready for the people they'd seen before. So they have to be smart. They have to try and catch the bad guys by surprise. So maybe they'd have Doctor Strange and America Chavez go against Hela and trick her into another dimension, trapping her there, as her father Odin had done before. Maybe they would have the X-Men going after Killmonger. He would have no idea who they are. And being tricky as he is, he might manage to get the best of them and stab one of them, only to discover they're a healer. Maybe they stab Wolverine, or maybe Deadpool is there. And he thinks he's won, but he hasn't. And then they manage to get the best of him. Maybe maybe Hulk goes after Thanos, and he's able to get his rematch boxing match, where the anger of the situation can make Hulk more powerful, and Hulk manages to get his revenge and to win the second round. And Thor can go after Ultron and use his lightning powers to take down the internet, take down the power sources that they have available to them there. And in a quick fight, able to take Ultron's forces out without them being able to upload themselves in some other way. And with this, they're able to take out the lieutenants, not by fighting the fights they already battled before, but new matchups, people that they would not have seen previously, and they wouldn't expect. And while those fights are going on, another group is going to go off towards Kang's Fortress itself to deactivate that time machine, because they already have the knowledge of how it works and how to stop it. And that's point number 6, that Ant-Man's crew will have the knowledge necessary to stop Kang's time travel. In Quantumania, they faced a variant of Kang. They know what his ship was like. They know the types of power sources that he deals with. And so that crew would be the one to go after Kang, but not after him directly. They would try and find his time machine first and deactivate it. Maybe they shrink it down so it can no longer be found. But whatever they do, they take time away from Kang. But I think Kang is too smart to just lose the entire fight behind without even knowing that it's happening. I think he would discover them doing this. And they would finish off that time machine, and Kang would no longer have the ability to use time, but he is still in charge of this timeline. And as such, he would bring forth the forces of these combined armies to fight against this Avengers group. He would bring out the Rough Riders, some Ultron clones of his own. He would bring his own army, like we saw in Quantumania. He would bring forth the forces, and the big final fight would start, with Kang and his power and his army against this multiversal Avengers crew. And after that final fight, the Avengers would emerge victorious, defeating Kang. But it's not quite over. You see, Kang reveals to them something terrifying. He is not the last Kang. He had defeated all the ones present at the moment. But the timeline is a cycle. The whole universe has its own cycle, and there will always be another Kang. And so this course of events are going to repeat themselves again, unless somebody can find a way to stop this cycle. And this leads to point number 7, that Doctor Strange has to stay behind in Kang's fortress to control the timelines and make sure that Kang cannot rise again, essentially becoming a new He Who Remains. So this is how I think this movie could potentially go, where they could manage to find their way to defeat Kang and his armies without being stuck in the same time loops that they would see in the first movie. It would be a come-from-behind story, and we would see Avengers emerging from across the multiverse. And the thing is, this allows Marvel 2 options. They can either set their universe right once more, or they could soft reboot. There have been a lot of rumors about this possibility. This would give them the option to do that, where they could then say, all right, Doctor Strange is now watching over the multiverse, but we have to start our timeline over. Or maybe we have to wipe the Avengers out completely and they form again in a new timeline. Well, however they decide to go about it, this leaves Marvel with a lot of options. Either way, I think that this would be a great wrap up to this age. The time of Kang would draw to a close with them managing to find a way to overcome him despite being overpowered by him at the same time. So this is how I would enjoy seeing this movie go. So let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this storyline? Do you think this would be a movie you'd want to see? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you think I missed anything, or if anything comes up later that could completely derail this theory, feel free to let me know that in the comments down below. Always happy to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching.